Yeah. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Adventures in Brain Injury podcast. My name is Kevin Ballister. I'm a severe traumatic brain injury survivor. You know me. This episode is sponsored by How to Feed a Brain. I got a dog over here barking, chewing on a toy. I'm actually at my dad's house. So if you're not watching this on video, you should be, because there's a baby picture of me right behind me. So this episode is sponsored by Feed a Brain, my website. Head over to feedabrain.com. We got supplements. We have articles, just information about how to optimize your brain function and how to feed your brain, especially nutritionally, the building blocks that your brain needs to function optimally. Because when the brain's functioning optimally, it's repairing itself optimally. If you would like to support us, head over to patreon.com and throw us a buck or two. Patreon.com/AIBI for Adventures in Brain Injury. Throw us a buck or two, but it really helps me, get the podcast produced and edited and get them out more often. I'm trying to do way more often because it's a lot of work doing all this stuff, and you'll hear V and I talk about this today, just the work that goes into everything we're doing, but the passion behind it as well. So I wanted to let you guys know that Feed a Brain, I recorded the audiobook for How to Feed a Brain. So if you don't read text, there's more than one dog in this house. Hey. So if you want to listen to the book, this is why I recorded the audiobook, because it's super important. Audiobooks have been a savior for me. So you can just go to feedabrain.com/Amazon. I think that'll take you right there. If you want to support us but don't have the monetary means, you can totally support us with a review, either of this podcast on iTunes, feedabrain.com/iTunes, or the Feed a Brain book, feedabrain.com/review will take you right to where you can leave a review, or leave a review on either of my Facebook pages. All of those are really, really great ways to support the work we're doing. Also, I have openings for a client right now. So if you'd like to schedule a conversation with me, you can head over to feedabrain.com/consult, and we can get a conversation going, or you can just send me an email, consult@feedabrain.com. All right, awesome. Today, I'm interviewing a very, very good friend of mine, V Capaldi. I call her V. I mean, she goes by V. Her name's Diane V Capaldi. So V is an amazing survivor, for lack of a better word. I mean, she had MS, lost bilateral use of her hands, and was in bed most of the time. Like, she lost a lot of function, and now she's killing it. She went on a tour where she went 5 times across the US, and she was actually driving a van that was sponsored by a CBD company, Elixinol, and you'll hear more about CBD. We're going to talk about that because CBD really helped her. I mean, honestly, marijuana in general helped her. She uses the whole plant, and she uses only CBD. And she did a whole summit on how CBD can be used for your health. And we talk a lot about this subject. So if you're interested in CBD, or you just want to hear an awesome story from an amazing individual who's doing some really good stuff, very good friend of mine, stick around, because right now we got V Capaldi coming up. What's up, y'all? And hello, V. I'm so excited you're here.
Hello, good friend.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, we we haven't we've known each. How long have we known each other now? Since 2015.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It was April. It was Paleo FX 2015. Wow, you
Yeah.
took that right out of the hat.
Yep.
It
And
really. Go ahead.
we've had some epic adventures, and it's just I'm so excited to have you here. Like what you have built, what you've been through, and like how you've transformed your life and just been this boss lady, which you always were, but taking it to empowering yourself and loving your life. It's
Well, I'm
really admirable.
learning from people like you. I mean, I got to throw that right back at you. I mean, even if I just take it back to when we first met, Kevin, our growth since then, like it stops me in my tracks sometimes. Like when we see each other every year at Paleo FX, and when I was touring, we'd try and see each other in between. But I got to tell you, both of us have continued this healing journey. When we met, we were miracles in our own right, and our miraculous journey just keeps evolving. And I learned from you. You are a community of my peers, and there's been many times, like every time I take my COQ10, it's because of a conversation I had with you several years ago. That it's like, so every night when I take that, I think of you. It's like I haven't, but yeah, I feel very blessed, and the fact that Dr. Walls is how we met. Come on, does it get any better?
Yeah. Well, so let's tell. I mean, Mayanis is familiar with my story, but for you, you went from being a CEO. You were in the business world, just like slaying it.
Yeah.
So,
Really
all right, tell me where you were, what happened, and then, yeah, you start from the beginning. When you get to the end, stop.
Okay. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here, and for everyone that's listening. I call it my super boring story only because I get tired of hearing my story. But the reality of the situation is that, at a very young age in life, I've just always been a type A overachiever. And, I was doing okay. I had a couple jobs, this and that, married my high school sweetheart, and got a vaccine for hepatitis. And the next day I woke up not feeling the left side of my body, starting with my feet. Fast forward a couple days, and I can't feel the whole left side of my body. Initially, I'm told I have an inoperable brain tumor and I'm going to die. I'm now 23 years old and married to my high school sweetheart, 6 weeks. That kind of sucked, Luckily, I was a respiratory therapist at the time, worked in one of the largest burn centers in the East Coast, had groundbreaking doctors, and they were like, you're not going to die. You need to see a specialist. You need to do this. And they wouldn't let me give up hope and kept pointing me in different directions. Make a long story short, I was diagnosed with MS. And at that time I had 3 jobs because I'm an overachiever. So I just stopped being a respiratory therapist, and I was already working in technology, in computer technology, in 1981, when it was still diskettes and there were and magnetic tapes and green bar paper. I mean, there wasn't even a PC when I started. Think about that, in technology. Fast forward, even in the face of MS, I built and sold almost a dozen companies from the ground up and made my first million by the time I was 20. And this coming from someone who was raised, pretty close to, we were lower middle class at best. My mom was a junkie and my father was a World War II hero that fought in the army and is medaled, but he had severe PTSD because he was shot at for several years, watch people die around him nonstop. So the fact that I was able to achieve all this in the face of MS, and I had a daughter, all before the age of 25, 26, earning, $1 million, raising a kid, having an autoimmune disease, went on to build international companies. Like literally went to Geneva every 6 weeks, opened offices in Ireland, and not in Ireland, I wish Ireland, in Switzerland, Geneva, Switzerland, in France, in the UK, a distribution center in Scotland, sat at tables with the greatest minds, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Ted Turner, did business with all of them, and was living the great life and thought I had won the American dream. I had lived in Help. I wore 10 10 carats of diamonds on me at all times. I had a gold presidential Rolex, 3 carats each year. I was that girl. 6 cars, furs, everything that people wanted, right? I was miserable and it took me down. I got so sick. So sick. So sick. When MS came back, it came back with a vengeance, and it just kept taking and taking and taking. By the age of 37, I become legally disabled. I use bilateral use of my hands, no feeling on the left side of my body, which I mentioned started like day one. Involuntary limb jumping. So I had lost the ability to drive because my limbs would like flail without any warning. So I was always afraid my foot would just like hit the gas when it was supposed to be the brake. Lost marriages. Basically, life was pretty unmanageable. I was alone, but I had $2.5 million in the bank, and I have a fighting attitude. So the day, I also was on the board of directors of the National MS Society, because remember, I'm a type A overachiever. So I had connections, right? And I do everything the doctors tell me. So I decided I'm going to move to California because I can't regulate body temperature anymore. MS still to this day has taken away my ability to regulate my own body temperature. And overheating causes MS symptoms, which ultimately is what disabled me. Was I overheated my core and I couldn't get it down. So I decided to save my life, and I'm going to move to California. I don't know anyone. The day my daughter goes off to college, I have an only child. And at first it seemed like the smartest, that's my dog. It seemed like that was the smartest thing I had ever done in my life, because I started really doing well. I was able to ride a bike. I became a certified yoga and spin instructor. I started working at the front desk of a yoga studio. And then my right hand stopped working. And then my left hand stopped working. And then I started falling. And then I fell, and that took me down. Then I started having trouble swallowing. Then I started not being able to use my hands at all. And I required 3 physical therapy appointments a week, 2 90-minute therapeutic body appointments a week, acupuncture because I stopped being able to go to the ladies' room, and that would help me to feel my areas. And psychotherapy twice a week just to function. I had full-time help with me because I had no use of my hands. And on a good day, I could feed myself, dress myself, and use the ladies' room. And I had live-in help until I spent all the money I had. In addition to the crash of 2008, I owned a piece of real estate that was worth $1 million. It went down to $497,000. And they were dropping by the minute, and I had almost all my money in there. And I also had money invested, and I lost $450,000 in a day. So in about a month's time, I lost about $1.2 million in assets. And then the rest of it was spent on drugs. I was taking 14 drugs. On the live-in help and the help that I had, the live-in help, I just let them live with me for virtually no rent. And I live in Venice Beach, California. So it's very expensive to live there. So I was paying a price because my utilities were more, everything is more when you have someone living in your house. And then I paid with my own money for my full-time help, because in the United States, if you're sick and you have money, you're going to spend all your money to heal. And only one drug that I took for MS of the 14 cost me $500,000 in cash. And that's a disease modifying drug. It was only supposed to stop the progression, but I kept progressing. And and the doctors are like, you have to take it till the day you die. I'm like, but I'm progressing. Like I'm literally not able to afford food because I'm paying for this drug, and you're telling me I have to take it till the day I die, which I don't even see how that's even possible. And I don't even know why. So make a long story short, I mean, the second youngest and largest population in institutions in the United States of America have multiple sclerosis. And this woman who was on the board of the National MS Society has the brain to be able to build international freaking companies. I caught myself before I said a really bad word. I'm a cursor.
You're allowed to say whatever you want.
And, had money, now was facing homelessness or institutionalization. I'm not going to lie. I also decided when I had no use of my hands and I couldn't drive, and I used my voice for technology to put myself back in college, believe it or not. I am that story. I took 2 buses, walked, several miles, took me 2.5 hours to go each way. That's my truth. I couldn't carry a book. I couldn't write a note. And I put myself back in college. I got a bachelor's, went on to get a master's. It took me 8 years. I went uninterrupted. I graduated in 2014. I started school unable to do anything. And by the school watched me go from this, being kind of okay to like, because I stopped being able to move my head left or right or look up or down. How do you read a book?
Mm.
How do you research a paper when you can't use your hands? And voice activation
Mm.
technology at that point couldn't understand. It could do Word, but that was like it. The school accommodated me as best they could, got through it. And by the time I graduated, I saw, before I graduated from school and when I was facing homelessness, I decided to go to Burning Man because I really seriously thought I should take my life. And for people that don't know what Burning Man is, it's basically a no judgment, no consumerism arts festival in the middle of the desert in Nevada that basically is all about getting in touch with who you are through artistic expression and lack of judgment and lack of ability to spend a dime. And I went to Burning Man because they built a temple and I wanted to pray for guidance and I wanted to be open to just life's energy telling me, should I kill myself? If so, how did it look? That's what I really thought I was going there to find out. And by the fourth day in the temple, I was raking. They had these rakes. It was like a Zen garden. And I was like raking. And, there were people sobbing in there. There's some real pain and great joys happening. I mean, I have goosebumps just thinking about the energy that was in that space. And I'm raking. And it was like a brick hit my forehead. I was like, oh my God, our healthcare system makes money. They're never going to help me. I spent all my money and it's fake. It's not real. I can't do oh my gosh. I got to go home. I have to lock myself in the house. I have to cut myself off from everything because what I'm about to do is going to go against the grain entirely. As luck would have it, didn't take long after that. Dr. Terry Well's first video, Minding Your Mitochondria, comes on social media, on YouTube. And I was screaming at the computer then because I used my voice at that time. And I'm saying to it, MS, diet, and just yelling at it, like, give me some information, Dr. Google. There has to be something. And all of a sudden this video came up and there's Dr. Wall's like picture of her in a wheelchair, but yet she's standing and saying she has MS. And it was, oh my God, I have goosebumps. And it was the first time hope was ever delivered to me. I was fighting this battle with my own moral compass, my own self-motivation, my own crazy psycho type A, OCD, ADHD person that I am. Like, I'm crazy. That's why I was fighting. But to finally have hope handed to me at my darkest hours, it's just powerful to recall these things. I don't consciously think of my story. And when I'm told to share it, it really, God, it blows me away. Just like I'm sure it blows you away. I look at the pictures. I have such a hard time looking at this one video that you did. It's like the first video you did showing your story because it just breaks my heart to see my friend Calvin that way. And it's so hard for me to think of me being so desperate and so certain that taking my own life was probably really my best choice. And then life providing someone like Dr. Walls to like give me enough hope that the balls out bitch I am was able to just be like, do exactly what she said and didn't need a support system, didn't need anything. I just did exactly what she said and it started working.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so powerful when you start getting your life back, getting your brain back, getting everything back. And you as such badass, like, go-getter all the way down the line, and the medical system kind of driving you down, right? And I mean, I talk about this a lot, but the standard of care is defined as the type and level of care an ordinary, prudent healthcare professional with the same level of training and experience will provide under similar circumstances in the same community.
Yep.
So if you're given a prognosis if you're given a bad prognosis, the last thing you want is the standard of care.
It's true.
That's the last thing you want. So it's really powerful that you step away from that, and you chose to consult Dr. Google and find something that isn't part of the ordinary, same, similar standard of care.
And it's interesting because I will, part of the story that sort of, although I was raised that I was raised in a Catholic family that said the Pope is infallible. They can never make a mistake. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just telling you how I was raised. I also was raised that whatever the doctor says, you do. So I really put a tremendous amount of faith in my healthcare team. But I also, the very first day they diagnosed me with MS, they said Valium and no babies. My mom was a prescription pill drug addict, so I said no to Valium. I had a friend say to me, cannabis. So I started using cannabis for the treatment of MS almost day one. So I did dabble in a holistic, and it did give me an outcome, which it helped the limb jumping that I had. But as MS progressed, yes, it helped, but it couldn't stop what was happening to my body, you know? And then that same friend said, not only that, but she said, you should try lavender oil to calm your nerves, because you don't want to take any antidepressants because of your mom too. So why don't you, so she gave me cannabis and essential oils. So they've been with me, and they're still two of my biggest things. And I opened an aromatherapy store in 1996. People thought I was crazy. No one knew what aromatherapy was. There was none of this stuff that there is now. And I won awards every year because I used aromatherapy. So I believe that I was a yogi, so that I was dabbling in other forms of doing myofascial release, of self-care. I had tried all different eating protocols. None of them had worked. Dr. Wall's protocol was I studied Buddhism. I went up on mountains and lived with monks and did noble silent retreats. Like I did all that. So I feel like by the time I got to Burning Man, life was just showing me that I needed to focus more on the things that society was telling were woo-woo and less on what society, because my body was responding to yoga. My body was responding to cannabis, but it wasn't responding to disease-modifying drugs other than giving me side effects and making me sicker.
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened with cannabis? What was your experience with that?
It's really interesting because I started using cannabis specifically for limb jumping and severe spasms. And as I weaned off of all my medication for MS, and actually I don't take any medication, but as I weaned off all my medication, I was meeting when I was meeting you, actually, when I was meeting you at Paleo FX and didn't know it, Dr. Walls and I were going to be roommates, and we were meeting. Actually, our flights were coming in maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes from each other at the airport in Austin, and we were going to get in the same car, and they didn't even have Uber then. I think you weren't allowed to or whatever. We were going to grab a cab together and both of us, go to our hotel room. So as I weaned off my drugs, I weaned off of cannabis because I thought, well, you know what? I don't have the involuntary limb jumping anymore. That's what I took cannabis for. I'll stop. I hadn't used cannabis in like 6 weeks. Get on the plane to fly to Austin for Paleo FX, and my throat closes up, which is what kills a lot is from MS. I get throat rigidity on the plane, and I start losing my mind. Normally I would have had muscle relaxants, all kinds of drugs with me, but not now, so I was unequipped. I had told the stewardess I'm losing my mind, doing, meditation and self-care to get through it, and massaging. I'm doing all get through it. And now I'm like a child waiting for its mother at the airport for Terry to get off the plane. Like, oh my God, thank God I'm meeting Dr. Walls. Like, I probably have to go to the hospital. Like, what's happening, And Dr. Walls has never been pro cannabis. I think she's changed a lot, but she's never, she knows I use cannabis, but she just ignored me. She's like, okay, babe, I don't need to hear that, whatever. So she gets there and I say to her, oh my God, my throat, da, da, da. And she's like very calm. She's so calm and so rational. It's ridiculous. And I'm so not, I'm so Italian, so Philly, so whatever. And she's like, okay, V, well, what, have you made any changes in the last couple of weeks? And I'm like, well, I stopped smoking weed. I'm not doing weed anymore because I don't have the spasms. And she said, well, what spasms were you doing it for? I said, well, when I started 30 plus years ago, whatever it was for the limb jumping. I don't have the limb jumping. She said, it was probably helping things that you didn't realize. It probably grew to help other things. And it looks like it helps your throat rigidity. So you may need that. Now, I'm hearing that from her. And I'm like, well, this is someone who's kind of poo-pooed this and ignored that I've always used it, just like, yeah, whatever, I don't want to know about it. So I vowed after that, that's it. This plant will be with me till the day I die. And it actually has expanded because I use marijuana and I use CBD on the daily. I wake up and within 10 minutes of waking up, I've consumed both.
Nice. Nice.
Every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it has helped with way more than just the throat rigidity. It has helped with what else? What other aspects does it help for you specifically?
I can tell you that a lot of people with MS, and even I'm finding a lot of other disorders like trigeminal, any sort of thing that gives you a trigeminal pain, a nerve zapping pain, face pain, neck pain. They call it a suicide pain. I get my trigeminal pain up the neck. So it's like you feel like this is like someone's just electrocuting you, and it is crippling. I also get a rib girdle. So it's a nerve pain, feeling like there's a Mack truck on my chest and I can't breathe. And the throat rigidity. It helps with all of that. And CBD, actually, cannabis can remove it almost all the way, but I have residuals, meaning if the weather gets like, if we have little rain, or if I get a little stressed, or maybe I don't get my optimum 7 to 9 hours sleep, those symptoms will come right back. And then I don't increase marijuana, I increase CBD. Because for whatever, cannabis was never able to get rid of my trigeminal pain completely, but it would only give me maybe one zap a week, or, a neck zap, where if I use CBD, I get no neck zaps. Like that's just gone. So I guess we're still learning what this all means, the endocannabinoid system. We understand it affects inflammation and things like that. But it definitely somehow is connecting a piece that I'm missing, so that as far as one strand of cannabis, marijuana helps a lot, but the CBD seems to be bridging a gap almost. It's like gap insurance. I feel like CBD is my cannabis gap insurance. And the other thing it helps with is sleep. So both help me with sleep. I do both of them an hour and a half before my desired time to go to sleep. And what I have found is the addition of CBD allows me to sleep longer without waking up. So normally I would wake up 2 and 3 times a night. Now I might only wake up once. And why that's important is because if I turn my mind on before I fall back to sleep, then I might not be able to fall back to sleep. And Kevin, that's our number one, is sleep and stress, right? I mean, food and all is important, but we got to start from a rested body.
Sleep, stress, hydration, breath.
Yep.
Like those are what's really important. And food's important. Get the other stuff as well. So you have basically, after seeing these benefits from hemp, there's been a huge, shift since we met in 2015. There's been a huge shift in the entire cannabis industry or whatever, right? Where we're the hemp industry, as it might be called, especially with CBD. So you have interviewed so many people, and tell me about what you have coming up.
Well, if you just real quick, I'll give you a slight backstory. So, in my healing journey, I could no longer look in the mirror knowing what I knew. So I decided to become voluntarily homeless, went on social media, said to the world, if you're sick and suffering or not, if you just need somebody, you give me a place to sleep, I'll drive to you, I'll help you, I'll do whatever I can for free. So
good.
I did that for several years. And the last year, the community bought me a van and we converted it to a home. So now you didn't have to offer me a place to stay, just hopefully a driveway. And in order for me to be able to do all this work, because I never took any money for the work, companies gave me money. So the people that paid for the van were CBD companies. So they wrapped it in hemp leaves. And they said to me, we just want you to educate people on hemp versus marijuana, CBD versus cannabis, versus marijuana, because people are confused. So I'm like, okay. So I was prepared to educate, and they educated me. They actually hired a company that gave me an education, lawyer, everything. So I was fully prepared to educate the public. Little did I know the education I was going to get, Kevin. Little did I know. And I'm goosebumps just thinking about it, because the first one was, I'm driving to Paleo FX, my first trip in the van. Texas isn't the most cannabis-friendly state, and I'm going to be driving with a van wrapped in hemp leaves. I'm in Amarillo, Texas, the very first place I'm parking in Texas with my van. I'm not there 30 minutes. I'm cooking my dinner because I have a stove and oven. I have everything in my And there's a knock on the van, and it's a woman who's definitely in her 80s. And I'm thinking, here we go. I'm going to get yelled at. Open the van door, and this woman wants to tell me how CBD has changed her life because her son has had hundreds of seizures a week, never been able to work, is 41 years old. Her husband died suddenly several years before. They never thought that they would ever be able, like, she's like, we just assumed my son was going to be in an institution when we died because we didn't know what we were going to do. Her mother, she lives in Seattle. Her mother lives in like Savannah, Georgia. I met them in an RV park because she goes with her son and lives with her mother for half the year. I was catching them on the way back. Okay. So she said to me, she hired a farmer in Kentucky and had him growing, before it was legal, growing hemp and making oil for her. Her son was now, I wish you could see my goosebumps. Her son was in a job training program and was on a list for a group house. And she's crying, telling me that her son is not going to have to go into an institution when she dies. Like, he's actually at 41 going to get his life for the first time. He's never left their house. Like, that began story after, I'm in a laundromat. Who's got the van parked out there? And I'm afraid because this guy, I'm in Arizona, in Phoenix. This guy looks a little like he's going to yell at me. And he wants to tell me, I've been a diabetic for years. He's just kind of a gruffy guy. And that's what made me scared. But he had a great story to tell me. And he's like saying, my wife told me for 10 years I should be doing this. And I told her no. And you know what? She was right. And it's CBD. So in March of this year, my daughter, after almost 4 years of me touring, said, Mom, you got to come off the road. It's time for you to help more people. And you're going to be able to do that, focusing on delivering good content. So I decided after my year of touring America in the van wrapped in hemp leaves, I drove over 50,000 miles. I drove cross country over 5 times in that 1 year. So like, I did it, and I drove every leg. So I got it all. I decided to produce the best content that I possibly could. So for the last year, I've interviewed everyone from Dr. Terry Wells, who talks, to Dr. Josh Axe, to Will Cole. I mean, all the people we love, Chef Pete Evans, Dr. Time O'Brien, all the movers, and this Paleo Mom, everyone that we
Dr.
honor.
Kabaka.
Yeah, all of them. Kesha Ewers, Jonathan Baylor, Ari Whitten. I mean, the list goes on and on. Joy Beckerman, the founder of Normal, who understands the activism and is the #1 expert on legislation regarding, because the Farm Bill was only passed, the Farm Bill was 2018. That made CBD legal in all 50 states. So federally, it's legal. You have to look at your states to see what their guidelines are, but it is federally legal. That just happened. So it can now be grown, and it can be sold, and it can be used. And that is why you're seeing it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
The sad truth is, I see it in my gas station.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuff is like not right, because it may not be organic. It may be distilled using butane. It may not be a full plant. It could have a lot of process to it. It could have fillers. So after hearing all those stories on the road of life-changing stories, I decided I wanted to produce content to help people be self-empowered. And you decide. And is it a wonder drug? That's what you're going to figure out. And I'm not going to tell you. 35 plus experts are going to tell you what they think. And they're going to talk about the science, because there is science. There's not a lot, but there is stuff out there. And then we're going to talk to you about hemp is more than CBD. There's a hemp industrial revolution, because glyphosate, Monsanto, our food system poisoned, our soil dead, dying. Hemp restores that. I'm fortunate enough that Nativa sent me to Ecuador to study organic, sustainable, and regenerative farming in 2015, the year that we met. So I've been in this community for a long time, and I've seen what hemp can do to our ecosystem. Also, 3 years ago, I got a great education at ShiftCon on what the textile industry, how it's toxic it is. 24% of glyphosate is used on cotton. So if you're buying cotton clothes, it's not organic. You're basically bathing in glyphosate. You're wearing Monsanto. You're wearing Roundup.
But the thing about CBD and cannabidiol is what it is. It's a compound that's found in in hemp.
And I was not prepared to hear the stories that I heard, and they ranged in age from 8 years old to mid 90s. It also didn't, it seems that the cannabis plant in the form of CBD it doesn't seem to be limited to one area that I heard stories of. And that's what I think, the agelessness of it. No one talked about a negative effect. And the fact that it was across so many things like diabetes, paresthesia, just overall pain, anxiety, depression, sleep. I'm sorry, there's a fly. It just really made me have to pay attention. I'm sorry, I have a fly that's been torturing me for a week, and I have this here for it. I'm not going to lie. Um, but it just really blew me away that happened. So that's what I've been working on since I came off tour, in addition to still supporting my community. And but full time, these interviews. Kevin, you did one of these. It's a lot of work. Like, I don't think
a lot of work.
It's the most work I've ever done.
Yeah.
And
you're a type A, like, who's done a lot.
Well, I just got told today, I'm doing it with Health Talks Online. We're doing a CBD online summit, and I just found out today that I overdo, so I have to slow my work down. I'm that person.
That's what I was. I've had friends say, "Hey man, you need to slow down. You're making us look bad."
Yeah.
In a past life, it's absolutely you. You're making us look bad, V. You gotta slow your roll.
I need to. I'm just so passionate and so just excited to, continue to give the, tools of self-empowerment and put them out there, that I just get overly enthusiastic. I blame it on MS because they say we lack emotional control. So I'll go with that. If I have to live with this shit, I'm using it when I have to. That's my story. Don't you every once in a while be like, hey, I have a traumatic brain injury. Sorry. You just have to call, you just have to take it. It's like, if I have to live with this, every once in a while, it's got to be a get out of jailer. It's got to be.
There you go.
So when I overwork, my get out of jailer is I lack control. I need help. I need to be guided,
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I mean, I'm an overworker, not an underworker.
Right. Yeah, me too. And my brain shuts off at one point, when I overdo it, which we both do. We push the envelope. It's like we're super passionate about what we're doing, and and it's tricky, but yeah, you're killing it. And I wanted to talk about how CBD and neurological conditions. Well, first of all, you were talking about how you had this realization at Burning Man that it's a business. Like the conventional care medical matrix is a whole business. It's an industry, right? It's a medical industry, and it's an industry that makes money from treatments, and treatments treat disease. So supply and demand model still is there. And about supply and demand. You want the demand to go up if you have the supply to meet the demand, because then the transaction happens and then you make the money. And it's like, okay, so we want more people to be diagnosed with some sort of disease, right? We want more people in need so that we can treat that need. And it's a rough scenario with the medical model the way it is. But what we're talking about here with the CBD and cannabis and all of it, it's not a drug, right? It's not a patentable drug that they can a pharmaceutical company can patent and then do the research on it and then sell it for insane amounts of money and have the health insurance companies pay for that, right? It is literally a plant that has been here for thousands of years that's been vilified. And it always surprised me, like, so all right, we're going to vilify nature.
Well, we have
But
to
if it's man-made,
we had to make room for man-made stuff.
and if it's brand new and it's never been tested, like for an entire lifetime, because that would take an entire lifetime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we can vilify that. I mean, it's just crazy, right? So it's really great that cannabis is now reaching the mainstream and
Mm-hmm.
being utilized for conditions and for health.
Yeah.
Because as you say, there's so many examples of how this is useful to people.
I mean, I can't deny, and I felt so, silly, because it wasn't until I was like 8 months in that I was like, I should have been filming every one of these people. Like, I didn't know, but I didn't know it was going to happen. Like, every time, and it's just like, oh, again. And the God's honest truth is, when I ultimately sold the van, I removed the wrap. And when I picked the van up with the wrap removed and I was driving, I realized that was the first time I had driven the van where every person wasn't looking at me. That's how much attention a van wrapped in hemp leaves draws. And it was just like, I remember being on the 405 in California, which is like, 10 lanes in traffic. And normally people would be rolling their window down, either giving me the finger or like doing this or, whatever it was. No one was paying attention to me. And I was like, wow. That education that I had was probably one of the best educations ever. And there's one other guy I know driving a van wrapped in hemp leaves. Like, who gets to just randomly have strangers come up and share a healing story? Like, no one. And, it inspired me enough that I spent a large part of the summer, like, I did a little book on how to make, I make lotions, I make bath bombs, I now do masks with CBD. Like, I use CBD because my joints get really gnarly. So I use self-myofascial release a lot, but I can use my hands and stuff, but just not as much as I want. I still have MS. I have MS, Hashimoto's, Lyme's, Epstein-Barr, and probably Lyme disease. And I was constantly using like balms and stuff, but they don't smell like as beautiful. So I thought, I want to make my own lotions, this and that. Bath bombs. You have no idea. Throw a bath bomb, a CBD bath bomb in, your body aches. It's like a gift. It's like Calgon, but better.
Wow. And you make these
I make them
yourself?
Yep. And I wrote like a little book with like 20 little recipes. So anyone that, wants to join us in the CBD Online Summit, you just get it for free.
Nice.
That's kind of
nice. Yeah. So, you shared that with me. It's, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's what it is. All these different products. And I'm curious about DIY with CBD. Where do you get the CBD that you use?
I think that the most important thing is that with like anything, you want to read ingredients. You want to find out, CBD is classified as a supplement. So the rules that you have for your supplement should apply to CBD. You want to read the ingredients. You want to make sure it's third-party tested and it's readily accessible and current. So most people have like a QR code right on the bottle or right on the packaging. So you can just check it out right from your phone. You always want to make sure it's organic, and you want full spectrum, because what that is the whole plant. If it's isolate, that means they've isolated part of it. So it has more process, more, the further it is removed from natural state, the more, you want to try and not have that. And I tend to only want to work with companies that control it from the soil to the package. So they're growing their own and they're putting it in the package. Not every company could be growing their own, because there's 50 bazillion million companies out there. 90% of companies are buying their oil from somebody. So that would be an extra step that you have to take. Just like Kevin and I are famous for this. We want to look at our plate and we want to see a rainbow and we want to know where our food comes from. Don't we? We don't want to eat food that we don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to put anything in your body that you don't know where it comes from. So I would think that the best thing to do is go to a health food store, a supplement, wherever you trust to buy your supplements, go to them and say, listen, this is you know, I'm interested in CBD, and also talk to your healthcare providers. Sadly, a lot of them aren't going to know about it unless they're a functional medicine or an integrative medicine, or you work with coaches like Kevin, people like that help people, and introduce them to, you know, and that's what, and that's what I do. I just use pure, I make recipes. I make dog treats for my dog because she has a problem with fireworks. Um, I make for 4th of July. I brought a raw pumpkin. I'm confused. A raw cheesecake that had citrus that had CBD, and people went crazy. They were like, CBD raw, vegan, the whole thing, and they're like, oh, it has CBD. Like, I think just because it had CBD, everybody ate it. You can't.
Everybody's so stoked about CBD.
You're like, oh my god, it's so California. Oh my god.
Yeah, for
I
sure, for
my
sure.
coffee every morning. That's how I start my day.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this DIY book that you created, I threw it on my site, feedabrain.com forward
Perfect.
slash DIY. DIY, do it yourself.
And it's really great. Like, I know it's the holidays. You can make this stuff and they make great gifts. I mean, bath salts. And I'm not going to lie. I went to all the dollar stores, Dollar General, and they sell the bath salts unscented for $1. Get the little jar. It's a super nice little gift. Just saying.
Nice. Nice. And this summit, tell me, like, how can people, can they get the summit from the DIY book?
That link, yep, that link will take you right there. Now, this summit I did with Dr. Mary Clifton, who is a medical doctor, who is a leading expert on cannabis and CBD. So you have a medical doctor and you have my story, because my story of healing is my story of healing. And that's what brought me here. So you have someone who can truly say what the outcomes have been. And then Dr. Mary Clifton, who is a doctor. So we have interviewed all of the people together. And she did interviews, I did interviews, and they'll all be up there. And it's a free online summit. It launches January 13th. It goes for a whole week. And if you opt in now, that's how you get the free book. So Kevin just posted up in the comments that link. If you just click on that link, that'll register you for the summit, and it's free. And then it'll give you not only the book, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff you'll get. And I actually think you get access to Joy Beckerman's, who was one of the original founders of Normal, and she is the leading expert on the legal stuff around hemp, because a lot of people have questions about that. You want to know, and also about advocacy, because I am an advocate, and when things become legal, yes, it becomes accessible, but it doesn't always mean that all the right people are going to want to play in the game, right?
Definitely.
So she really helps to educate you so that you feel, again, even more self-empowered, and that you feel like you come from an informed stance when you engage in conversation with people, because maybe people are like, CBD, you can't have CBD. Like I sent an email out and I got 3 emails from people stating what were false facts regarding CBD to me. And I felt very self-empowered because I would able to say, oh, actually, no, Bill, blah, 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 in your community changed that law. Because I pretty much have checked out the laws in almost every state. So, yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, it's so important that people really get educated on this plant, because it's clearly very powerful, whether it's good or bad, how to use it, why to use it, what it works, who it works for, what it's good for, and what is the appropriate amount and type and spectrum and all that. Getting into it, there's a lot of information there.
I mean, it really is a lot. And so we have, I figure, 35 interviews averaging about 30 minutes. A few of them are about an hour, but it's a lot. And I will tell you that for the summit, what we did do, which I think will be nice for people, because they're like, I don't have a week. I think I got a week. I barely have an hour. We sort of lump them into categories. So if you have an autoimmune issue, there's like one section for autoimmune. If your brain, that's one. If you're, want to learn about sort of the hemp industry, the hemp industrial revolution, that's one day. So you can sort of navigate what's going to work for you. We're not trying to tie up your week. We're just trying to give you tools of empowerment, so it's not, I don't want you to think that it's like, I'm not listening to 35 hours, and they're easily like, it's CBD and traumatic brain injury, CBD and anxiety, CBD and autism. So you can really make a decision what you want to hear. We're not trying to take all your time. We're just trying to give you the tools. That's all. Just the tools of
Right.
empowerment. It's the only way we get empowered is if we have enough tools of self-empowerment, then we can pick and choose the ones we want. No one can empower us. We can only empower ourselves.
Yes.
I offer great tools.
Yes. Yes. And you're a living, walking, talking, driving across the country 5 times in a year, MS survivor. You're a miracle. And thank you for explaining to me that I'm a miracle too. And I like to tell everybody, you're a miracle too. And you're a miracle too. We're all miracles. And but you're a little extra on that whole spectrum. And I thank you so much for your friendship, for your encouragement, your badassery. I really appreciate you.
And I appreciate you. I'm so proud because when we first met, the only thing we knew was that we had to share our stories. And you've written a book since then. You've done a summit. You've been. I mean, I know that you travel around the country helping people, going to their homes, helping them, just like I do. We both, and I'm just really proud of us, and I'm just really grateful because it's friends like you that support me and cheer me on. And if it wasn't for relationships like I have with you, Calvin, I don't know if I'd be able to do the work that I do. You, Dr. Terry Wells, Michelle and Keith. I mean, Allison.
Mm-hmm.
Just think of all these amazing people that we have in our lives that, you know, again,
Family.
get emotional. So I just want you to know that my healing story includes you in it, Calvin.
Mm-hmm.
You've been a big part of my last 5 years, and you inspire me all the time. So I love you.
Oh, I love you too, V. And I feel the same way. Like you're the names you just named, and you're all part of my family. I love you guys, and and thank you so much for for joining and helping to make this happen.
Thank you, Calvin. I appreciate you, and I love you more than you know.
Bam, V Capaldi, amazing human being. So good to have her on the show. I mean, it's been years in the making. It's been like since 2015 when we met. We knew there's a lot of work for us to do, and we've been doing a lot of work together. I just have never had her on the show until now, and it's so nice to have her on the show. So again, it's feedabrain.com/DIY for her guide, or just go to feedabrain.com/CBD, and you'll see you'll get all the info about the summit that's happening on January 13th. So real soon. Yeah, check it out. There's so much to know, so much. I mean, me working with clients, I've seen seizures reduced enormously, balance improve. I mean, we're doing a lot of other stuff, but these are some things when we're also implementing CBD when it's appropriate. So check that out. Again, this is again, if you'd like to support us, go to patreon.com/AIBI for adventures in brain injury and leave us a buck or two. Support us without any money. Leave us a review on iTunes, on the Feed a Brain book, or on any of the Facebook pages, either Adventures in Brain Injury or Feed a Brain. And man, I think that's it. Oh, yeah. And if you'd like to schedule a consultation, um, you know, for this month, for January, if you go and schedule a podcast, or you schedule a conversation with me for sometime in February, and where it asks for you to pay the initial call investment, right? Podcast CBD, and I will waive that fee. So yeah, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation, and that's about it, I believe. Anything else? I think that's about it. Yeah. So thank you guys so much. Have an awesome it's New Year's. It's 2020 now. So happy New Year's, happy new decade. Let's do it with intention, with attention, and let's build ourselves up and become who we want to be in 2020 and beyond. Thanks so much, y'all. See you next time.
Someone take me to a doctor.